Hey everyone, Matt from singletracks.com here. So I've got the Cannondale Scalpel SE-2. Been riding it a lot over the past few months and I'm pretty excited to tell you about it. So let's start with what the bike is. Cannondale says that it's an XC bike made into a trail bike. I guess that's accurate. I'd probably call it an aggressively spec'd XC bike because, well, it's still only 115 millimeters of rear travel, 120 up front. So we're still just barely on that cusp of what we call a 120 millimeter to 140 millimeter trail bike. The difference is from the normal Scalpel is the geometry to start with. So it's a 68.5 degree head angle, which is a degree slacker than the normal Scalpel, and a 72 degree seat angle, which is a degree and a half slacker than the regular Scalpel. So what components make it an aggressively spec'd XC bike? Rather than the 100 millimeter Lefty, which we'd see on the regular Scalpel line, they have a 120 millimeter Fox Performance Elite fork and a 115 millimeter Fox Float DPS Evol rear shock. So they've pulled 15 millimeters more travel in the rear and put 20 more millimeters of travel up front. Other than that, we've got some slightly more aggressive tires on here. Maxxis Ardents, which are a little bit beefier than what's on the regular Scalpel line. A 2.4 inch up front and a 2.25 inch in the rear. SRAM level TL brakes, and you also get the race face affect dropper post, which you're not going to see on the regular Scalpel line. On the regular Scalpel line, they've stuck with the rigid, I think, carbon seat posts on some of their higher end models just to save weight. So, how'd the riding go? Overall, I'd say it went pretty well. I don't know if it was Cannondale's offset drivetrain, but I felt that I could really put a lot of power down on the climbs. The offset drivetrain is intended to push the drivetrain out a little bit so you can shorten the chain stays, and then you get supposedly better traction is what Cannondale says. I didn't really find any pedal bob worth noting. I kept it mostly in trail mode when I was climbing, except on smoother stuff, then I would lock it out completely. I'd say the only downside I found climbing was within the geometry itself. So 72 degrees is pretty slack for today's standards in a C-tube angle. And it didn't bother me on most things. Didn't bother me on flat sections, didn't bother me on moderate or mild climbs. But where I noticed it was on steep climbs, and I felt like I really had to hug myself into the top tube and the handlebars to actually stay centered on the bike and keep enough weight up front. Descending on the bike has been a blast though. So it's super responsive, very quick in the corners, and even on steep, really chunky descents, I never felt that with the steeper head angle that I got in over my head or anything. And a lot of times I honestly forgot that I only had 115 millimeters of rear travel. It's very progressive through its travel, firms up a lot towards the end strokes. I rarely used all the travel, but I probably had the most fun with it on jump trails. So flowy jump trails where I could really pump and roll and jump. It felt super fun through the air, very stable. For the most part, I think Cannondale made some great component choices. The wider handlebars are nice. The GX Eagle drivetrain, 12-speed, I had no problems with it whatsoever. The skin wall Ardents I thought looked great on it, and were a good tire choice for what the bike is. The SRAM level TLs were enough stopping power on the bike for me, but the adjustability is not good. So basically, to adjust the reach on the brake, you have to take the lever completely off the bars and really get in there with an Allen key, adjust it, put it back on the handlebar, and kind of hope that it's the right reach. Other than that, the remote for the affect dropper post is kind of cheap also. It doesn't offer a lot of grip and your fingers slip pretty easily. My only other gripe were the hubs. Again, not an operational issue, but they just didn't offer the engagement that I would have liked to see at a $4,500 price point. So I'd say the bike is for somebody who wants to put saddle time in. I mean, it's still a cross-country bike. There's still only 115 millimeters of travel in it. If you want a bike that's going to easily get you to the top and not freak out when you start going downhill, and not going to freak out when you send it over some jumps, then it's a great bike too. So at $4,500, it's not necessarily a budget bike, but you do get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a pretty hefty component package that is pretty aggressive, and you get a full carbon frame, which is nice also. As a whole, I really like the Scalpel SE-2. With a slightly steeper seat angle and a few less budget-minded components, I would have loved it. So thanks for watching the review. Check out the more in-depth analysis, the written story and review on singletracks.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and have fun out there.